Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to the official Earth Dog Studios UFO podcast. We've got a great episode tonight. We're going to talk about the disappearance of pilot Frederick Valentich. This has been a story that has fascinated me for years. And I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the case. And what I want to see is, can we reach a consensus whether or not this was pilot error? Before we dive right into the questions, though, let's introduce ourselves to the room. C. Michael Lanning, tell us who you are.
Hey, I'm C. Michael Lanning, independent artist. I've done work for Hazard Productions, Arrow Comics, and so forth. Got an upcoming Magi's Grace with J.D. Calderon of Oswald Chronicles coming up. And also host Artstyle Kamikaze coming back in the new year on Indie Comics Network. So,
Sweet. Nice. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Rodney Fike, tell us who you are, buddy.
Hey, everybody. I am Rodney Fike, writer, artist, creator, just like C. I've done stuff for Haslam Productions because that's me, and various other things that currently finishing up the coloring touches on issue 2 of Doghouse, which we will probably run a Kickstarter sometime in the first half of 25. So
nice.
Stay tuned for that.
Welcome, Rodney.
Thank you. Thanks for
coming back. Chris, it's great to see you, man. Tell us who you are.
Thanks for having me on, Tim. I am Chris Hall. I am a computer colorist of 18 years. I also do editing, animation. I'm kind of a jackass of all trades, master of none. And I currently work with Exile Studios. Just joined them, and I work with Zen, who frequents this podcast at HC&P Productions. I also work on projects through Glass House Productions as well. So
nice. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
You're going to be a regular now too.
I hope so. Thank you.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So tonight we're going to talk about Frederick Valentich. He's an Australian pilot, right? This incident is from 1978. There's a couple of things that are interesting about this case. The main thing, though, is that the guy claimed he was abducted in midair by a UFO. So let's jump right into some questions, right? C. Michael Lanning, what do you think of the Valentich case? Is it pilot error or was he abducted by a UFO?
You know, I've seen cases for both, and I can understand that. When you look at Valentich, he had an obsession with UFOs, which kind of helped contribute to him becoming a pilot. So
Right.
that could have played a little bit into what he thought he saw. I don't think that could discount, but that does. I don't think that should necessarily discount if something actually happened or not. So,
well, how about this? Like, there's not really too many good explanations for what could have happened, right? Like, the distance between the 2 points is only like 125 miles, which that sounds like a lot, but in airplane terms, that's really not very far. So
Right.
They should have been able to find some kind of wreckage if it was a pilot error. Do you have any thoughts on why there's no wreckage found?
The only thing I can say is I did see that they supposedly had something wash up on shore years later. That was a piece of a plane that was of the same make and model, and the serial numbers were around the same type of serial numbers as his plane. Other than that, we'll get into some more stuff later on, but that's the only thing that I know of. As far as when they went out to go look, they couldn't find anything.
Yeah, they couldn't find
odd.
it. They couldn't
Kind
find
of
it.
odd. Yeah.
So, Rodney, what do you make of this? Is it potentially pilot error or is it something else?
Well, I listened to the audio, and it doesn't sound staged. And then you get the background. Okay, he was obviously a UFO enthusiast, wanting to learn how to fly and get his license and all that. It's really, I mean, you could safely lean one way or the other comfortably, but I'm still wrestling with which side I choose to believe. It's just, I was kind of looking forward to tonight because I just wanted to.
And you mentioned it has kind of this disturbing air traffic control transcript, right? And I'm going to put that up on the screen there, and we're going to talk about this. Chris, let's talk about the transcript a little bit. The first thing I'd like to start with here is a reminder for folks that maybe don't know. I got a couple of brothers in the Air Force, and these people are trained to be able to recognize not only all types of aircraft, but meteorological phenomenon. They're trained to recognize these things. So when an air traffic controller starts hearing these types of reports, it's disturbing, right? So what he's claiming, Valentich, is that he's being basically kind of stalked by this series of lights, and the air traffic control is saying, what type of aircraft is it? What type of aircraft? And of course, the pilot's saying, this is not an aircraft. What do you make of the transcript, Chris?
So as far as pilots being trained to recognize aerial phenomena, Valentich was not a particularly talented pilot.
Kind of a new pilot, right?
Yeah, he had failed multiple tests to become a commercial pilot. As far as flying hours go, he was, as far as I could tell, he was barely above the hours that it takes to become competent to fly. So I don't know if he necessarily would have been an expert in identifying aerial phenomenon and craft. And I have strong opinions on this case. I think this is complete pilot shysterism.
Tell us what you mean by that.
I think it's very ironic that someone who so strongly believed in UFOs and someone who talked about them all the time, was just very into them, just so happened to be abducted or something, encounter a UFO.
Okay.
Not to
Good
mention
point.
the fact that there's a possibility that his failures in trying to become a commercial pilot could have been humiliating. And there's the fact that he had two different stories about why he was going where he was going, and both of them turned out to be false.
Well, it was a training exercise, right? That was what I had.
No,
No.
he was either going to pick up a brother-in-law or something like that, or go get crayfish.
Going to see friends.
But you see, I don't think that's really, I don't think that's really contradictory though, because the idea could be both, right? I mean, he could be picking up a brother-in-law who has crayfish. He could, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go get me some crawfish, or I'm gonna go, it depends.
Well, let's see this through to the end, right? Because this is really the main question, which is if it is something that's related to pilot error or even potentially a hoax, how far is he ready to see this whole thing through? Chris, are you saying that he ditched the plane? Where are you going with this theory?
Well, so both of those sources were verified of why he was going where he was going, and turned out to be false, blatantly false, according to what I read. And there were reports of a mysterious aircraft landing near where he was flying shortly after he went off radio contact.
So let me ask you this. If he faked it, where's he at?
Right. Yeah, I was going to say we can poke some holes in this theory. Rodney, you go first.
Yeah.
If this is something that he did intentionally, he sure saw it the whole way through by crashing his plane into the ocean.
Well, yeah, and it's like, okay, because you said at the beginning of the show, he was abducted. How do we know he was abducted?
It's in my case, that's kind of a bold claim, but that's interpreted from the air traffic control.
From the air traffic control. Okay,
which is saying basically this thing's right on top of me. Now, I remind you, the official explanation, it says some really ridiculous things like, and by the way, I should not show bias. Let me try that again.
Yeah, it's kind of a case that you
can't. Some of the things in the explanation I really have questions about. For example, they're saying, oh, these reflections of the four lights, it's possible that he was inverted and he was flying upside down and he saw his own landing lights in the reflection of the water, which What? Like that's almost impossible to believe, right? It's
Right.
Okay, so let's chew on that for a second.
Go ahead.
If he was inverted and he was close enough to the water to see his reflection, how few of a seconds do you think he would have had before impact? The timeline just doesn't.
Well, and then when you take into consideration that the aircraft passed him up,
Right.
that's another thing as well.
Exactly.
I've heard that at that point in time, if you look into the astronomy, at that point in time, there were four. There was three planets and I think a star that were pretty bright in the vicinity of a diamond at that point in time, also. But the only thing that I have an issue with that is, well, yeah, that might be possible. Is he described something metallic, and that's what I can't figure out. That's the only thing that kind of gets me. If he was inverted like the water, okay, but what were the lights in the water? Because I know they said there was a green light that was on his plane, and that might be what was in the water as far as the green light is concerned. But did he have the same four lights on the top of that plane to reflect in the water? Is my question.
Yeah.
For that to be the definitive answer to this, those lights would have to be there. And I haven't seen anything where somebody pointed those lights out on top of the plane like that.
Right.
Well, and a quick reminder, if we're talking about being able to find wreckage from a plane, it was only across 125 miles.
Yeah, that's
right. It isn't like they had to sweep the whole ocean to find this guy.
Right.
Something's wrong with this explanation. Like I say, even planes have crashed in much larger areas and still had pieces of them found.
Is there a strong current in that area? Is there
Boy, that's a fair question.
Because a strong current can carry stuff out very fast.
Somebody mentioned earlier there was a piece of wreckage that washed up, but it was like years later or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a while. It was a while later. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was it wreckage though, or was it something with the name of the plane on it? It was something like that.
No, it was. I can't remember what it was, like a fender or something around those. I don't know airplanes, but it was something around those lines that matched the same type of plane he was flying that night, and the serial numbers were similar to what the serial numbers would have been on his plane. Now that explanation confuses me as well, because if the serial numbers, did they not have the serial numbers to his plane? If this is a plane that's just like it, yeah, the serial numbers would be the same. I mean, they're makes and models are like that, so that's the only thing.
I have a question. Tim, put the map back up real quick, if you would, please.
You got it. Right up.
Where was the plane when it disappeared? Do we know? I mean, that's the flight pattern there.
Right.
But was it along the coast when it disappeared? Do we know when it vanished? I was looking for that, and I never could find anything about that. My point being is, Chris, you made the comment about the strong current to push it out. My point is, if it disappeared along the coast or even in that bay before he gets to the coast, it's probably not going to get caught in the current. Now, if it's more out towards Cape Otway, there's a higher possibility of it getting pulled out with the current. So that's why I was curious if there's did anybody find any mention of where in that flight pattern he disappeared?
I did not. Okay. And to touch on those serial numbers, there was from what I could read, he may not even have had permission to take that flight. So, what is the FCC? Not the FCC, the guideline. May not have had serial numbers. And so when they found that wreckage, that piece of the plane, the serial numbers fell within a range of serial numbers that could have matched that particular type of plane that he was flying.
Okay.
And he was known, well, he had a couple incidents where he flew into territory that he wasn't supposed to be in. And he purposely apparently flew into a cloud, which he almost got a lawsuit for that.
Yeah, he was not an experienced pilot.
No,
at all.
no, he had like 150 hours.
He purposely flew into that cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's probably looking.
Well, let's. What I want to do, let's take a second and circle back to this this transcript, right? Because the reason why it conflicts is because of what the guy is saying to the tower. Again, this is my opinion. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Because it's easy to say, well, this is a hoax because of this, or this was pilot error because of this. But the part that's on the record is what he said to the tower. And it's disturbing. Let's quick run through it, right? Unknown due to the speed it's traveling. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity? Tower. No known aircraft, right? Valentich. This is not a commercial airliner or anything. It's something else. You can tell when a pilot starts talking like that, he sounds a little frightened almost, right? Like, what do you mean it's something else? And here's my point. Allegedly, he'd be able to identify like a commercial airliner or a satellite or a shooting star or I don't know, a tornado, whatever kind of visual things you could be seeing. The aircraft is now hovering above me. It's about 300 feet long. Get an idea, picture that in your head real quick. 300 feet long. It's about the size of a football field.
Yeah.
It's making a strange humming sound. Can you imagine being in your plane? This is where it starts to get weird, right? And like you say, let's say for a second, and this is where we're going to try and get some kind of consensus. Because let's say we believe that this Valentich fella was trying to make some kind of a hoax or do something, and he was UFO inclined by some of these reports. But that doesn't take away what he said on the record. And this is the part that, and by the way, he said this right before going missing forever. So if he ditched the plane, he sure sold the illusion, right?
Right.
But the last part here, he says, I'm starting to have trouble controlling my aircraft. It's hovering on top of me again, and it's not an aircraft. The last words.
Did y'all read that this transcript was eerily similar to dialogue from Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Yeah, apparently it was, which had just come out that year. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing that out there.
I was going to say, I'm a fan of Close Encounters. There is, I think I know which scene they mean where they guys are the pilots. I guess it could potentially be that. But curiously, they'd be the same year.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, isn't Close Encounters come out in 1978? I think it did.
Yeah, it came out that year, it said.
How about that? So I don't know. Again, to me, I think that if they would go through all that trouble of, sort of like this, basically a terrifying radio transmission, it seems too far the one way to be a hoax to me. And to me, I'm ruling out pilot error 100%. C. Michael Lanning, what do you think?
Well, Close Encounters was 1977, so it came out the year before.
Yes.
Which could have been, there definitely could have been an influence. But if we're looking at his going off, how did he go off the radar? That's what I like. Okay, they're saying they didn't see any aircraft in that vicinity the same time he was there. If he made a hoax, he was an inexperienced pilot. He had a plane that he'd taken. Where did they lose him on the radar? If the blip just stopped, can you do that in an aircraft? Especially 1978? I don't know. I really don't. I'm really seriously asking because
I don't know.
If that's the case, wouldn't they have been able to track him going back in towards land?
From what I could tell, they didn't say anything about a radar, having him on radar or anything, right?
Well, no, because he said that is there an airplane or anything in the vicinity, and they said they didn't see any other airplane in the vicinity.
Right. Okay.
So they
That's
were
true.
monitoring the skyways.
Yeah,
That's what
they're
I'm
at least
saying.
watching it.
Okay, so
Right.
so if how do you get rid of how do you if
Magically disappear.
yeah
Probably mass.
does he ditch the transponder, turn it off? How does that work? Is it still visible on radar if he does that?
Hmm.
And even if he does throw the transponder off the plane, don't they see the transponder trailing off into the ocean?
Well,
I mean,
but if you could do that with a regular commercial flight, we wouldn't have had the stealth bomber, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of the.
Let's switch tactics here a second. So, if we have, let me think of a way to put this. It has to be one of two things. Ready? And actually, I'm asking you if it's one of two things, because you might say, well, there's this weird third thing that I hadn't thought of. But it's either A, he crashed into the ocean and no wreckage was found. Occam's razor, it's possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said all this stuff for some reason. Let's say it's all unrelated for some reason, and then for some reason crashed into the ocean. That's number one. Number two, he was abducted in midair, right? It's either one of these two things. Is there a weird third thing? Chris, let's go to you first on this one. Is it one of those two things, or is there one that I overlooked?
I think the third thing has got to be the possibility that this was a hoax and he pulled a DB Cooper and landed his plane and disappeared.
Yeah, admittedly hard to hide a plane, though. That's a big secret to keep. I'm a little skeptical of that one. Rodney, what do you think? Is there a third? Although, I mean, I appreciate alternate theories. I do love alternate
No, that's
theories.
fine. Yeah.
No,
Rodney, what do you think? Is there a third thing?
I think there's always a third possibility.
What's yours? Let's hear one.
I kind of agree with Chris. I think it's the whole DB Cooper kind of scenario. He got his 15 minutes of fame. He got what he wanted. And,
well, Chris, you're exonerated. I kind of didn't like that theory. Look, you're selling it to Rodney. So, like I say, we're trying to reach a consensus. You don't all have to agree with me. See, Michael, jump in here. Do you agree with the potential third theory, which is possibly a DB Cooper scenario?
Do I agree? I don't think it's possible simply because of the immature level of the pilot.
Oh,
I don't.
Okay.
I don't see.
Yeah.
Considering we're talking about a fresh pilot, one that was severely flawed, I don't see that as possibility. However, I would like to offer this scenario to the first possibility of he just crashed and why we can't find his wreckage. I don't know how it works off of the coast of Australia, but here in certain places, like in rivers here in Louisiana, you'll have these sand traps open up underneath the river. And it's very dangerous to come swimming in the river here because these holes will open up and they will pull people underneath, and then they'll cover up. So my question is: if there is a current, could that possibly have happened that the plane crashed? So, is it possible that the plane crashed, hit one of those at that specific time, or even moved into that before they could find it, and it was covered up on the bottom of the ocean, and it's deep buried underneath sand and dirt and everything? I think that's a possibility.
Okay, so listen, I would find that a little bit more plausible than the other one. So I guess it's fair to say there's 4 possible theories.
I think that adds to the first one more than anything. To the plausibility of
yours is really more like of a 2B in the sense of it explains if it was a crash, why there's no wreckage.
Right, there's no wreckage. But then you have the
let's be honest,
for the one piece.
Except for the one piece.
Except for the one, which would if it was the one piece of it, it might have unearthed itself and dislodged or whatever and came aboard. But then on the second, so what about the witnesses? You have one witness that said he saw the 4 lights, that he saw the green light, even though supposedly he didn't add the green light until later on when he learned about the green light, which that could go either way. That could be a false memory. I don't think he's necessarily lying. So there is a witness to these 4 lights. And I've seen stars. They don't usually typically move that fast. And if I see four stars moving that fast, it's going to be something that stands out to me as a witness. That's one witness. And then there's another witness, right? There's a farmer who made the statement that they saw not only the aircraft, but they saw his aircraft attached to it.
Yeah.
The problem is,
that guy wasn't credible or something, right? He was like,
nobody could find him, right? It was almost like an anonymous witness. So you kind of have to discount that under there, unless they can find the actual person to interview him. But the first one was an actual witness. I don't remember the name of it, but
now, I'm gonna say this, and let's start with Chris, because what I always want to know is, let's say, for example, it is a hoax. In this case, we'll look at them one by one. Okay. First, it's the DB Sweeney scenario. Okay.
Cooper.
DB Sweeney's the actor, right? So DB Cooper. DB Cooper scenario, in which I mean that the guy basically fakes the UFO encounter, and then he sometimes, what are we picturing here, that he hides the plane somewhere, or does he crash it?
There's also,
let's leave that to be determined. Let's leave that to be determined, because really what I want to know is, again, 1978, not like UFO fame as a thing for a young pilot who's from Australia. Why would he do it, Chris? Why would he do it? You start.
I will say that the only faith that I have in people is that they will always seek their 15 minutes of fame, and that they lie. People lie, and they want to be famous. I think that's more than enough reason.
It probably is. That's you're so right, because you look back at some of the hoaxes, and it's a thing that humans have always done. It's not really a new thing.
Right. Yeah. Yep. There were probably cavemen going, "Oh yeah, got attacked by," trying to make himself look like a big man.
Rodney, what do you make of the DB Cooper scenario? Is that something that, if it was a hoax somehow, and he was really obsessed with UFOs, like some people say, why would he do it?
Hubris. Yeah, like Chris said, it's just, he's seeking his moment in the spotlight. But the more we peel back the onion on the whole DB Cooper. I almost said Sweeney.
I did it. Sorry, I tilted the whole conversation now.
Because the first time I said it a few minutes ago, I was cautious. I couldn't remember if it was Sweeney or Cooper, so I got it right.
Yeah.
It's just based on C's, how inexperienced he was. I hadn't thought about that prior, but to me, it's less and less likely that it was a hoax. So I'm kind of leaning more away from that possibility. I think he was either abducted or he took a header into the drink.
Into the drink, baby. Davy Jones locker. Okay, C, you're going to get the final word here. Let's say it was a DB Cooper scenario.
All right.
Why? Why would he?
I'm going to give you a mixture here. All right, ready? It started out as a hoax. Started off as a hoax. He was planning on coming back down. Something happened, and he lost control, and he crashed and got buried underneath. Current took him away, whatever the case is, and we're just seeing a perfect storm of everything.
So yours is a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B.
I think it's a possibility that he was to the point that he was trying to make it look so much like a hoax that he ended up taking his own life accidentally. I think that's plausible. Simply because that way he could go down in history if he landed that plane, that he saw something out there, and then he'd be interviewed and everything like all the other UFOs. that had been coming out at that point in time, and there was a 15 minutes of fame. However, he somehow miscalculated something and took a nosedive. It's a possibility. Only problem, like I said, though, is you'd have to take and count the witness. What did the witness see? Did he see what he said he saw? And then that's the only thing that kind of throws a monkey wrench into that.
Yeah, it's kind of stunning to think that he might have been attempting a hoax and then sort of offed himself. That's where you're going with your
just accidental pilot error after.
And then
yeah, right.
The witness that saw him, oh yeah, I saw him up there. Yeah, it was a plane and a UFO. Yeah, it was
Who knows?
amazing.
Maybe he was drinking a bunch of Fosters and just he saw the lights.
He was a young guy. He was a young guy too.
The witness was no, I mean I was talking about the witness being seeing the lights, just kind of because if the witness saw the lights, I don't know where he was to see it, so that would almost put the guy near the coast, I would think, huh?
Yeah, you're
well,
right.
yeah, and by the way, and I read some of these witnesses. The one we're talking about was not too credible. There were some reasons why he's not always referred to. Let's circle back around. That's one thing. There was a little bit of media coverage for this case, and that's, of course, you guys know the big paper down there is the Australian. I guess it is.
It seems apropos.
Yeah. But I mean, look at that. Above the fold 6-inch type UFO mystery. It's not like, well, maybe we think he crashed. No, it doesn't seem to even mention that. So, I guess my first question, let's talk about the way the media covered this case. There doesn't seem to be a lot of time given to any alternate theories. Why do you think that is? C. Michael Lanning.
Well, like we said earlier, Close Encounters of the Third Kind just came out the year beforehand, right?
Sell more copies of the Australian.
There you go. You put UFO mystery on the front of it. UFOs are big right now. Spielberg has made UFOs front page news. Stick that thing on the top of it. You're selling like, oh my gosh, could Richard Dreyfuss be right? That kind of thing. And I think that's quite plausible. Although it does ask a question as to what was the loud metallic noise, which is something we haven't discussed, I guess. I just kind of assumed it might have been just part of the plane, but.
Well, yeah, the right after he gives his sort of prophetic last words, they mention this loud metallic noise. I didn't really mention that in our conversations because I don't know if that's really conclusive of anything. I mean, radios make weird noises all the time.
And UFOs historically don't make noise. So.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of let's finish up the media coverage. Rodney, how about you? You notice, like I say, it's not like, well, possibly it was a crash. It's great big letters, UFO. What do you make of it, Rodney?
I think it's just what he said. I think it's to sell papers. It's especially back then, sensationalistic headlines and stuff were in vogue in the 70s and the 80s. All the magazines, the rag mags at the checkout counter that was their heyday. So let's put this on the cover and we'll sell 5 times as many this week. Yeah, definitely. And as far as the metallic sound goes, that could have been the sound of the wings being peeled off as he went into the ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe he was jamming to a little Metallica right then, and he just popped the cassette in. Chris, before we sign off on the media, I mean, what's your take on this type of media coverage? And really what I'm pointing out here, and I get it that we want to sell more papers. I get that. But it isn't, pilot missing. It goes right to the UFO mystery. Do you think that might be an irresponsible way to cover this type of missing persons report?
So again, from the reports and the introspection that I read, the ufologists and the UFO people were spearheaded the paper headlines. They were the ones that drove the UFO theory. So they're the ones that push that so hard. So that could be another reason why they just like went with, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's going to sell papers and all these people think it's a UFO. So why not?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely would agree that that's some of it, but I don't know that. I mean, newspapers still have to have the veneer of truth, don't they?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, and speaking directly, I don't know the level of the Australian. Maybe it's
Yeah, they will
cruising.
put on the world map.
Right, right. Well, let's take a look at the type of plane that this was. It was a Cessna, right, which is really kind of a little plane.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that makes it more scary or less scary. I just wanted to point out that he mentioned that the object that was on top of him was 300 feet in length, and which is quite a bit larger than a Cessna. It would be dwarfed by that thing, really.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's a football field, so that's huge.
Yeah, the Cessna would be what, like 2 yards on a football field?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That's a tiny plane.
Yeah, probably maybe 15 yards at the most in length. So Cessna, 15 feet long, 20 feet long.
Yeah,
I'm
something
not
like
sure.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how he determined that it was 300 yards, but he said it passed him by too. So
that. Yeah.
Didn't he claim that it was kind of playing like tag with him? Like not tag, but it was like it would zoom away and then come back and it was like playing games with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one comment who said it was hard to tell the size because of the rate of speed, which I guess kind of makes it seem like it was going pretty fast.
So has anybody heard the audio? Because I heard the audio.
Oh, no
yeah,
kidding.
please.
No.
I've read the
heard
audio.
it.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I don't know where I was trying to find it. I don't know where I read it or heard it, and then I watched another video on YouTube where the guy said that the audio has been completely scrubbed from the internet. And I'm like, well, I just listened to it a couple of days ago. I was prepping for this, and I can't remember. I can't find where I saw it, where I heard it.
Why would it be scrubbed from the internet?
Hey, I don't know, and I didn't have time to go look and see if that was true or not. But that was just the one video that I'd watched on that one.
Which kind of brings me back to a point. We were saying about what I saw as proof of his being a liar, as far as what he was going is concerned, is where he was going wasn't informed that the plane was coming. That's what I heard was the reason why, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 reasons on that is if he did take the aircraft without knowing, he wouldn't inform anybody else, right? But another one is, are we sure that we're not dealing with some type of cover-up?
Here we go.
I mean,
Now we're talking.
If they scrub why would they scrub the audio from the internet? Or even the idea that they would scrub the audio from the internet if it was perceived as just being a pilot malfunction.
Exactly.
It's obviously a sign of a cover-up to me.
You're thinking like government cover-up, see?
It could be. I mean, it could very well be. If the thing about the metallic sound that gets me is I feel like I would have found somebody would have come out at this point in time and identified that sound, right? Should have been a sound that would be identifiable with the plane. That's one thing that gets me. I haven't heard anybody come out and say, "Oh, that metallic sound was probably the rudder."
Maybe it was the Close Encounters of the Third Kind series of musical notes.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Maybe it was the plane scraping the side of the UFO as it entered because they didn't open up the cargo bay big enough. I don't know. I'm just saying I didn't hear an explanation for what they thought the metallic sound was. The fact that they included it in there as being something suspicious is suspicious in itself. We only have a transcript, except Did you read the audio and the transcript at the same time, Rodney, or was it? Did you just
No,
listen to it?
I just listened to the audio. I'm trying to find it again.
Okay, but you didn't read it at the same time you were listening to it, right? Because I'm kind of
No.
wondering, is the transcript? Is there redacted parts of the transcript that we don't have?
Yeah.
I wonder what the Australian law on classification and things of that nature are concerned, or declassification and all that. I don't know how readily they're open to letting something slip through,
Yeah.
Sure.
Conversely, just I was curious, with the whole close encounters theory. I was curious how big that particular UFO was supposed to represent, how big that was supposed to be, and Google said it was supposed to be hundreds of feet long. So that would definitely fit in with it's 300 feet.
I'm gonna mute myself for a second because I'm gonna see if these are the audio clips. Okay. But I'm here.
So I do want to, as we get into the last quarter here, I want to see, let's try this consensus, and I'll go first just to set the stage, but feel free to disagree with me, right? So the first thing is, I don't think that this has the elements of a hoax. And I also think that wreckage would have been found. I think C has a pretty solid theory about the whirlpools and the various types of tidal things that could have
It's a stretch.
got rid of evidence. It's a good theory.
Yeah.
But for me, it's going to zoom back to the air traffic control transcript, which again, these are people who are trained to talk about these kind of things. And the fact of him being kind of into UFOs, that does affect my opinion. But I don't think it's enough to where, so that's why he crashed his plane. He was so into it and everything worked out perfectly, that it's been a mystery all these years. And he was lying to the air traffic. It's way too much to pancake out. Like, you got to go with the simplest explanation. Ready? Either A, he was abducted by aliens. B, it was a hoax and he tried to cover it up. I'm going with A. This guy was abducted in midair by aliens. See, Michael Lanning, what is your 2 cents worth on the Valentich incident?
Like I said, there's too many questions in both scenarios to go with it. Something happened. I think something happened. Golly, I'm so on the fence about it. Really, it's really hard to kind of say.
Do you want to put your answer as the perfect storm of all the things? Like, he was obsessed with. Tell me if I got it wrong, but your theory was basically he was obsessed with UFOs, and part of it was kind of a hoax. He tricked the air traffic control tower and then crashed anyway accidentally, but it was near a perfect place where the tides covered him up.
I would love to say that that's the issue, and I would love to stand on that hill.
Yeah.
However, the problem comes in with you still have the witness. You still have, the fact that it's hard for me to believe that he wouldn't even let somebody know where he was going at that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess he could have been going out and coming back in. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm gonna have to stay with I don't know. This one's got me stumped.
See, he didn't let anybody know where he was going. So the fact that he didn't let anybody know where he was going, I don't know.
Rodney, come on. We're dependent on you. We got to reach a consensus here. So it's either one of these 3 things. Ready? Either A, he was abducted by aliens. B, it was kind of a hoax for some reason on the air traffic control tower. And C is like he crashed into a tidal pool and that he erased all the records.
Like a whole
and look, I'm not crapping on your theory. See, I think I think it's a good theory. Yeah. Just because something has a lot of steps doesn't make it impossible. But I want to see what we agree on here tonight. Rodney, which one was it?
I don't know, but I found the audio. You guys want to hear it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is all we have from the final moments of that flight. So, with that transcript read, I'm now going to play you the newly released audio recording from that final transmission in 1878.
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear.
Yeah.
Can't really hear what it is.
All right.
So, but yeah, it does lend the perfect element of spookiness. But Rodney, you gotta let us know, man. What is it? Either he was abducted by aliens, or he was hoaxed and crashed.
I keep going back to what C said earlier in the show. He wasn't experienced enough to pull off a hoax.
Oh, good one. Yeah.
And I just can't get I just can't get over that hurdle now. So as much as I would like to think that he was abducted, I think he probably just he might have been up to some tomfoolery.
Yeah. But Rodney says he crashed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with he's
right, got it.
Swimming with the fishes.
Okay, Chris, now we're back to you. The choices are it's one of three things: either A, abducted by Zeta Reticuli; number two, he was hoaxing the air traffic control tower because he was really into UFOs; and C is he crashed into the tidal pools.
I really like C's theory of the perfect storm, man. Like the hoax and accidentally crashing, and just reports of any even modern aircraft of trying to find a modern aircraft. The currents pull that sucker at least hundreds of feet within an hour. So there's just a really, if he did have to ditch the ship, crash the ship, it's very possible that they could not find the ship. So I like C's theory about the perfect storm.
Okay, that's a good theory. I buy that. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so C, I didn't get your answer. Listen, I'm the only one. I'm way out here on my own. I'm the only one saying this guy was abducted by.
Tim, let me say this. If he was abducted, how did they find that piece of the airplane that was supposedly from his plane?
There was two things I didn't work into my theorizing, and here's what my two objections were. First of all, thanks for asking that, because that's a fair question. Number two, I didn't put the ground witness in because I felt that he was not a credible witness. And number two, I didn't put the years later wreckage theory in because allegedly it wasn't really a piece of wreckage. It was like something with the name of the airplane on it. And there was some dispute as to whether it was actual wreckage. And like I say, it was supposedly like 10 years later or something silly.
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
a long time afterwards.
And so those two things are not in my theorizing. I'm taking my theorizing directly from terrifying air traffic control transcript and missing airplane. Those are my two biggies. And like the other stuff to me, and I'm not trying to swing anybody to my theory, but all the other stuff kind of doesn't matter. I'm telling you, if you're a pilot, I don't think you do put a hoax on the air traffic control people. That kind of thing is very rare when people do that, and especially in '78. I don't see that part.
Unless he was smuggling drugs or some contraband.
Well, that actually, to me, would be more likely than, like I say, there isn't much reason to, like, whatever shenanigans you were trying to pull with the air traffic control tower, there's got to be a more compelling reason to do that other than, well, what exactly? Hey, I'm going to make them think that none of it adds up. Again, that's one man's opinion. That's why I want you guys, because we'll get all the Yeah, when, where, and why. Dan Peters, drop it in the comments. Was Frederick Valentich abducted by aliens, or was it something else? And see, it's still your turn, buddy. I talked over you. Go
I
ahead.
don't know. I was hoping you forget because I'm really having problems with this because I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that piece of airplane might not be his, but however, if that one eyewitness is right that he saw the plane smashed up against something else, it could have broken off and fallen into the ocean, and then that was
Yeah,
that's
I
the thing.
didn't. I didn't include that witness, although he would have bolstered my theory probably a little bit more.
Yeah,
But
actually,
I want to know. That's why I say I don't want you to take the witness out of your equation, because so your choices are either A, perfect storm, which was really you're the first one to come up with that theory. And Rodney says that he crashed the plane unintentionally while up to some funny business.
yeah.
And I'm saying aliens snatched him up right in mid-transmission, screaming and kicking, just like in War of the Worlds.
I don't think just because he is an UFO enthusiast that automatically discounts a witness. It adds question to it, but I don't think it automatically discounts a witness. So yeah, let's go with UFO. I'm gonna go with UFO. So you just
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Conclusive proof of UFO abduction.
From the man in black and white, we have a verdict.
Rodney, I got a question for you.
Yeah,
We couldn't hear the audio clear, but you could. Did he
not
sound
really.
terrified
It,
at all?
the one that I listened to the other day, yes, and it actually gave me chills because he wasn't screwing around.
Because that could change my mind. If he was,
Yeah.
if he sounded
I
terrified,
can't-
you can't fake
I
that.
can't find it. I think I listened to it on my phone, and I
But
can't
what
find
gets
it.
me is that piece that she showed us said it was newly released, re-released.
Yeah,
So it's like,
And
what did y'all
the
do?
one that
What did y'all take it and do to it? That's
right. The
hey.
one that I listened to wasn't. It was the original audio, so I can't remember where I saw
Has
it.
anybody
I think it
looked
was
into
on
what
my
his
phone.
parents said? Like, say he was going to a brother-in-law or cousin or whatever the case is. Has any of his parents, because his parents were still, I think they're still alive, corroborated that, yeah, he had family there. That's what I'm wondering. And I feel like that's skirted around. Like, okay, he said he was going to see some family over there. Only thing that I heard that discounted that was Queensboro or whatever it was, said they never had any information that he was going to land there. But I haven't heard anything from the family. Has anybody seen anything from the family
No.
about this?
And I got one hesitation too on, we tended to frame it a little bit tonight in the sense of, hey, this guy was really into UFOs and almost to where he was like interested in it or obsessed even. When the
Yeah.
reality is that might not have been the case. He might have mentioned something once in passing. Like he didn't have UFO posters hung up in his room or anything like that. This guy
But he
was
had
a
an
pilot.
experience. He had an
Apparently
experience though. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was going to say, apparently, according to all the reports, he was a UFO nut, like obsessed.
Yeah,
Well, I heard that he had actually had an experience where he saw one. So
I didn't hear that.
yeah, that's what I had read. It was in Skeptic. It was in Skeptic Inquirer, I think is the name of it. They'd had an article back in 2013. So they're coming from that angle that it was the plane crash or whatever, and it was an astronomer who wrote the article. But that he actually did have an encounter where he thought he saw a UFO. So that could be okay. Sure, that could put it to that he's in that mind frame, or it could have put it to the fact that hey, maybe they were stalking him, and you got to get obsessed with something when it might be stalking you.
We've seen in a number of these cases people who claim to be abducted by aliens. They typically claim to be contacted multiple times.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, speaking of being contacted by otherworldly beings, if you guys are around next Friday night at 10 p.m., we're going to do the second round of ghost photos. I've got some great ones lined up. So I think we'll see just about everybody here. Rodney, you should come too.
yeah, I'll be there.
All right.
Hey, do you guys have anything that you want to promote? Anything like that?
Nothing yet.
Okay,
No.
gotcha. Well, before we go, first off, I want to thank you guys for sharing some of the opinions tonight. This is a really good one. I was a little bit outvoted. I thought for sure we would declare without a doubt that we'd be unanimous in our assessment of the abduction of Frederick Valentich. But before we go, see Michael Lanning, tell us where we can find your work.
As always, on landingart.com, it'll link you to my Facebook. Anything on indiecomicsnetwork.com coming up, or not .com, I'm sorry, just landing Indie Comics Network on YouTube. The .com is a pain in the ass from what I understand. And up to coming next year again, we'll pick up our style Kamikaze, so look for that.
Nice.
Oh, and I've got Magi's Grace coming, but I don't want to put the link in until it's live. So
Sweet. I'm going to announce mine next week during the Ghost Show. Rodney, how about you? And hey, man, thanks really so much for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's great being here.
Yeah, that was a good one.
This would trip me out. So I don't know.
Rodney Fike, tell us where we can find your work.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Rodney Fike Art. You can find me on rodneyfike.com or all my artwork, where you can buy some of our prints, our books, and order a commission if you'd like. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Nice. Thanks, Rodney. As always, I really appreciate
Thank you for having me. It's always good to be here.
Chris, tell us where we can find your work, buddy.
I am on Facebook, Chris Hall Fatboy. On Facebook, I'm on DeviantArt, also as Fatboy73. And on Glasshouse Productions site. So my work is there as well. And if you're interested in a colorist or video editing or animation, anything like that, you can contact David Campiti at Glasshouse Productions.
Nice. Thanks so much, Chris, for coming tonight.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you guys sharing your viewpoints. To the viewers, man, thanks so much for tuning in. This is our 5th episode, if you can believe that. And I'm really thrilled to be making these for you. Tune in next week. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing ghost photos. That's going to be a lot of fun. Other than that, we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. Good night, everybody.